Thank you for hosting us. So, hi everyone. Welcome to our first New York City event of 2024, I believe, Casey. Isn't that right? Did we have another event this year yet in New York City? We had a gathering. Yeah. Yeah. So we're trying to have more events in New York, and normally it's upstate or Long Island. And so it's nice to see a healthy group of people, half of whom I think came from DLR Group, or more than half. Um, the purpose of A4LE has always been really interesting to me. The AIA has a education committee as well, but I found that the spirit of both of them is very interestingly different. You know, the AI is very professional in terms of having a lot of designers, right? It's the American Association of Architects, right? American, um, basically a professional organization. Whereas the A4LE is a combination of educators and of architects. And that I think is what really makes it unique and exciting and interesting. And I don't think we have any educators with us today, do we? So that's the next effort, Casey, that we'll have to make. But I just wanted to say welcome, and I hope that all of you will continue coming to our A4LE events. And Dave is our AIA, very dedicated AIA Education Committee member. And so maybe we can do more things together. I think that could be fun. So, like I said, we're thinking of having a school tour at Marymount School. That would be a combined event. So look out for that.
I'm going to go right into this. We have some introductions coming in a minute. I'm Kevin Walsh. Do that in a minute. I am an ALAP registered architect, lead AP. I have some colleagues of mine. We're from BBS Architects out in Suffolk County as well as up in Albany. And my joke is we do have somebody in the Czech Republic, so that's as far as we go that way. But let me get this going. We have this presentation for you to discuss a brief look into our world. I wasn't sure who the audience would be today, so I'm just presenting this from our point of view purely as learning environment planners, architects, and engineers. I appreciate the comments about A4LE because I feel it's helped me bridge the gap, and I do know some superintendents that I could bring next time who would be happy to come from Nassau County. So myself, I'm a partner with BBS. Carolisa Grunner, Senior Associate for Architecture, Tracy Hansen, Associate for Interior Architecture, and Jackie Ruggiero, Interior Architecture Planning. Trying to keep it to 30 minutes by the time is there, so I'm going to keep it moving. So I'm getting to the whole thing about it. This is kind of Northeast centric. I think we have our own issues here dealing with K-12 other than other places in the country. So many K-12 clients in the Northeast, they don't want to spend money unless they can get some kind of return on that, and that's hard to define. Others say, please help us, and they're not that concerned about it. So the hype leading in the 21st century, I say it's over, end of story. Of course, it's not really the end of the story, but we're at a new starting point. We're here in 2024, what's next? How do we push forward what we've learned, especially the last 5 years have been very dense. Yet to discover. This is back October 14th, 2020, I gave a webinar, which of course that was created 6 months before that. It was a moment of time I think we can all remember. But this was through AIA Long Island and Nassau BOCES. Very quickly from the bottom left to the upper right, the one-room schoolhouse, the Industrial Revolution, packaging students into buildings, suburban sprawl, 21st century design and everything that was and all the iterations it went through, and then slam, stop, 2020. And so back to 1950. Okay, so we had to do that. So now it seemed at the time in 2020, maybe 2020 to 2025 would be a good time to plan what's next. So it's kind of cool that we're still in there. So I just bring that up. So adapting to varying variations, right? So I think you're going to see in this presentation we're dealing with so many stimuli. How do we get that? Pushing our collective questions asked, concepts to consider. So this presentation is just sharing ways to relate to changing approaches in learning environment design, use and adaptability. It's not just the design. If the users don't know how to use it, it's useless. So it's all that whole thing. I'm keep trying to find ways to connect with professional development for educators and find a way for all that to continually filter in. And I know you all talk, we want to have the voices of the students and the users and teachers and communities, but just for that to keep cycling through. The baseline, after all that, every person is unique. This is our starting point. Every project, every place is unique. And every community with its activity is unique. So our baseline is people, places, and activity. I think it's that simple. If you start there, empirical qualities and languages of expression that tie us together as people. But the built environment ties us together, ties places together, and activity as the all-purpose glue in real time. So these are the elements I think always going on. Empathy fuels activity. I think this word is maybe overused, but if we think of it as energy, I think that'd be a good way to connect things. And it cuts through all these other things, and it's a two-way street as it's an exchange of energy. I think to find ways for that to influence our design approach is a good thing. And hopefully AI will help us crunch information so much that we can just focus on gathering. So into our learning environment design influences. So I'm going to go out and start talking about emergence as a concept. So how do we take all of these things that are all happening at the same time, and how do we possibly understand them together? So obviously emergence is about varying things. In combination, they mean something, but separate, not so much. And I'm going to get into pluralism a little bit later. So if yellow didn't have its friends, what would this be worth? Not much, right? So it's a combination of things that create an effect. So philosophy, systems theory, science, and art. Emergence, as I said, it's the complex connection of multiple single components that create a new reality in their combination. Kind of like the work we do. Semi-silly example, but to try to, part of this is also communicating with clients, potential clients, people who have never had this conversation before. How do you even start this conversation that could go on for years, right? So butter, what's butter? It's a component. Do you know what butter is, right? All these things, butter, a pile of flour, a little thing of flour. Put them together, they're yet another thing. Combined with heat, stir it up, do this, do that, add the milk, add the cheese, spoon, whatever you need to do, time, the roux, and then eventually mac and cheese. So just as a metaphor again, to try to get to this. Now, stepping back a minute, I'm going to start using brain. We talk about neuroscience a lot, especially LP. So how our brain's job is to generate meaning from internal and external stimuli all the time. Change the stimuli, perhaps you can change the meaning. So some would argue that evolving how we choreograph the stimuli in the built environment can broaden the learning experience. And I'm going to say those stimuli are not just physical, it's not just space, it's also culture, it's language, familiarity. Backing up a moment, left and right brain theory. This is all going to come together, trust me. Back in the 60s, Roger Sperry proposed that the left brain was one thing and the right brain was something else, one more technical and one more loose. We have all of these kind of great images of what that means. If somebody's really technical or if they're really creative, they can only be one or the other. And on and on and on. And eventually, wait a minute, not so sure about that. And sure enough, in the early 2010s, research has shown this is just not true. And in fact, it really has to do with fibers of the brain. The center of the brain connects all around it. So in fact, left brain, right brain, they're always kind of intersecting, no longer embraced. You could kind of still say that language on one side versus context and tone, the qualifier of it, could be a little bit different ways to compare things. Einstein talked about combinatory play, saying if you have a whole bunch of opposite things as a learner, you don't know how they connect, but you try to figure out how they could connect, you start to invent, you start to learn, you start to explore. Combinatory play seems to be the essential feature in productive thought. Corpus callosum, that's that center part of the brain. In the little diagram, the little orange area, it's the place to be, and it's the The main metaphor of this presentation saying there's a central spot that draws from all around it to create meaning and significance. Example, 3 pianists. One's really over-technical and unemotional. The other one's undisciplined, completely chaotic, yet amazing touches my soul, somewhere in the middle. Who would you connect more with? The purely technical pianist or the one who plays with emotion? The musician, the latter, is using that center space and they're pulling from opposites to create something new, and the built environment can mimic this process by the types of spaces, the variety of spaces, the changes in boundaries and borders and containment of spaces to support learning. So 3 learning spaces, compartmentalized and overly focused or overly dedicated. No, or versus no order, no scale, no focus, and no intention. Or thoughtfully intended, balanced, and adaptable. So the analogy of the piano playing versus the built environment space. Bunch of things I've written for New York State Council of School Superintendents. So just a couple excerpts of that. Using the human brain to try to create these metaphors for people to try to understand this incredible intangible that we don't have a proof of. So that metaphor provides us a dynamic, some design clues for how to work things out. And it's hard to stop the human brain to understand how it really works, just as it is to write a proof. Because if you stopped it, that'd be the end, right? However, feedback from students and teachers who've experienced these successful learning environments is a valid start to understanding why they work. I think this is just important going into certain clients and certain K-12, especially in New York State, where you kind of have to prove something, but you can't really prove it, right? You have to talk about it. Deductive, inductive, adductive reasoning, all happening at the same time. Things that don't seem to be the same, but they're happening at the same time, allowing for spontaneity. Just to be quick, deductive means there's a guaranteed conclusion versus there's a merely likely conclusion versus take your best shot. So again, we're mixing all of this all the time. We want the built learning environment to be supportive for people to drop their guard, leave at home what's bothering, come and be part of the culture of learning in that built environment. Huh? Okay, wait a minute. So what are we getting at? Why educational spaces are becoming less compartmentalized. We're designing student learning exchanges. I'm going to give you some examples of what I mean by that. We're focusing more on activity than containers. STEM became STEAM and STREAM, and future classrooms will be more interdisciplinary and culturally sensitive, and dedicated labs eventually disappear in favor of learning studios. Now, technology and virtual reality blurring the edges, and AI is just blowing it all out of the water. Self-regulation intended to keep chaos. So we're going, obviously, this is you guys know all this, probably we've been in K-12 design. It's not teacher guided, it's kind of student driven. Self-regulating, that becomes the way of avoiding chaos. And the environment is to promote that people feel that they can engage and be a part of it that way. All represents educational planning of what we do that will affect the practical side. Our new start. Diagram created, and the idea of this, back to left and right or technical and creative, just pick one of the 3 from the left and combine it with one of the 3 on the right. So follow the rules, but be innovative. Be creative, but be precise, and so on. Opposites that create something better. So to me, that's design process. And architects have been doing diamond theme forever, so I'm glad everyone caught up. Reality check. So it's great to think all these things. It's great to have these theories about how the brain can be used to design, but how do you make a physical manifestation out of that? That's our job as the architect part of this to do. And we have to deal with high expectations. We have demanding clients who want cutting edge design. Efficiency is necessary to make this happen. There's not an infinite flow of money anywhere. And you need to be convincing somehow within reason. Appropriate cost is more of a constant than it's perceived to be, meaning, oh, these are all wealthy districts, that's why they have cool stuff. No, it costs the same everywhere. And really the way to get this done is thoughtful intention, a grasp of reality, good communication, and teamwork to create successful projects. Just forget the BBS part, but just the practical things that we have to deal with. We can't forget basics. You have to do that. But then you've got qualitative parts of all this. You have to activate all the things that have to happen and what could happen and what should happen. Next level skill set of pluralism, multiple stimuli. I was talking about this before. Process all at the same time in succession, complex patterns, not necessarily in any kind of order. This parallels the idea of combinatory play that Einstein was talking about. We're forced into this all the time, being barraged with information all the time. And so obviously kids are. Potential chaos is always lurking nearby, and we've got to have proficiency in multitasking, varying media, information, social situations. You've got to be able to edit or you're done. So just some graphics of qualifiers, kind of like edit versus overwhelm. These are qualities to put into design that lead to a broadened learning experience, starting from the blue, moving through what the learning opportunities are and the spatial opportunities are, through people, empathy, and culture into an actually broadened experience. You can never forget we're all still people juggling lots of things. And that, again, I believe that's the energy pulling that all together, because all students are juggling things all day. Educators, parents, friends, these are all qualities and quantities that have to really be addressed to facilitate for the built environment. Should support all of these. An ability to focus, speed, pace, multitasking. This is, again, from the student perspective. It could also be from the teacher's perspective or the family member. Before, I was talking about a kind of left, right, two-dimensional, this, that, but it's much more three-dimensional than that. And I think actually, if you imagine you're in the middle of this sphere of everything that could possibly be combined into something new, you're constantly pulling from all directions in the middle of the sphere and four-dimensionally with time, to the point where everything is going so fast, the stroboscopic, that it's going so fast that it feels like it's going backwards. And you can get kind of overwhelmed very quickly. And even, I'm trying to parallel this, why did this come up? Because in discussing with clients and future clients and users how to design actual space that promotes learning, it's a lot to contain into one conversation. So getting into theoretical, we want to allow dynamic exchange, both scientific and creative in terms of process, but the applied is providing transparent, semi-transparent, fixed versus operable, all the other things about the actual physical space. Decompartmentalize the space and then recombine. Go back to the same things talked about theoretically. So you have your typical, historical, and the potential possible of these types of environments that are now actually operations in physical world. This was presented back in the beginning of 2020. A lot going on here. It's talking about what's like a master plan to this. We've got a building and things we're talking about. We've got people that we're talking about. The people are either students or educators. And then you have this vision that you want to have inform everything. To break that apart a little bit, you start with the vision of what should happen, moving through the students, starting from how many, the value, students, their connections, their opportunities, citizenship, their ability to focus, and eventually push beyond known limits would be the goal. And as far as teaching and learning, everything from pedagogy of the teacher itself to what the community could offer to the learning process. And eventually the building, everything from the physical building to technology, to adaptability, color and texture, et cetera, nothing we can do quickly, but this is a way to kind of get it all on one page. And disruption. Another element of all of this in terms, we need a break from extended periods of focus. The environment can do this too, learning environment, passive distractions. Think of design elements, visual variety. Think of the attention span of people, and think about, again, changing time signatures in music, changes in taste, changes in spatial variety to kind of keep it moving. Or a nice image. Another nice image. Moving forward into creating a vision forward with all of this in mind, think about known things differently. And if we could think about schools as verbs, it might be a good way to get us moving in the right direction. And we've got to engage with people. So this process with people, listening, and then presenting back and repeating that process in terms of the people part. The place part, as the student learning exchange, as I would call it, is the place is the verb for the activity of the people. And moving towards some projects here this is actually a high school project of recombining library, cafeteria, mentoring, other spaces, and thinking about the activities that would be going on in groups that the students and the faculty would be going for. I won't say them, you can see them, but in terms of the different types of things that are going on in the space, and as we went through the building, that we were trying to make sure that these things were accomplished. Not all these go together, but that's the whole point. At the end of the day, being in between all that type of thing. All right, so we've got 5 projects to talk about this a little bit. Briarcliff Manor High School is currently in construction. This is up in Westchester County. The existing building, as it was, kind of compartmentalized, and what we talked about is just kind of scooping out the middle. This is a diagram of the building. Blue is the high school. Yellow is the middle school. They're compressed together. Red is the circulation pattern currently. It's a bit of a labyrinth. And we knew we wanted to create a student learning exchange, and we knew what was around it that we wanted to connect. And we went through and we analyzed the building, thought about connecting the main entrance through to all the major elements of assembly of the students, kind of looked through at how the space could be rethought. That was our scope of work in yellow, which kind of looks like that as a floor plan. So our process was to basically blow up the middle, think about a new boundary around that middle for the space, and start to program with the client and users and students how we would program that space. So after New York State, you have to get your funding first before you go deep dive. So this was all a process with committee, and then kind of sketch through some kind of liven it up a little bit and think of all the possibilities. That eventually led us to a final plan and some renderings of the spaces that were created that really try to touch on all these theoretical pieces that we're building up to this. I don't know that we have time for this whole little video here, but I'll play it a little bit. But essentially, this was all just a series of corridors, hallways, and a bit of a labyrinth. And my kind of joke with the client was, you get to the building and got to the front entrance, and I felt like I walked a mile, and I ended up on the other side of the wall that I started at. And so our job was to try to animate that or try to make a true collection point. Again, this building over time, like accretion, it just kept growing out. And it's a building that had no courtyard. It had a light well, a little light well courtyard. You're going to see that's now internal space that's coming up. So that we had, it was just fragmented to pieces, and there was no rhyme or reason to anything. And what's coming up on the left, there was a music room, the only sloped floor in the whole building. And you had no idea it was there because it was all walled off. So we opened that up and tried to think of that part of it like as an interior landscape plane. And be able to look through, and they can have robotics and things like going on. They've got some cool multi-purpose lab behind that for robotics, et cetera. And we had components of the library left. They're kind of in the back left corner. And here's our new skylight, which used to be a courtyard, that tiny, just a light well. In the back right corner is kind of tech help, and like, well, computers come in, help with your computer. And then in the back is a curved wall that talks about, is a science research lab, a bunch of research labs, all off to the side of this, with all different ways of getting together and allowing this to happen. Security-wise, this is kind of in the middle of the keep of the building already, so we were able to work that out. That's an example of that. Fox Lane High School in Bedford, Westchester County, is currently obtaining New York State Education Department approvals. This was kind of the pre-referendum plan. Different type of building than Briarcliff Manor, spread out a little bit more, but the same idea of library, cafeteria, kitchen, etc. Boom, boom, and I'll show you in a minute. So we did the same type of process, kind of rethinking the components and understanding the context of what we're trying to connect and where the students are really going. On the left was programmable space before, on the right is programmable space after. And I'll point out the kind of incredible straight line corridor that went for seemingly miles down the middle, 8 feet wide, 8 feet high. No glass. So this is what we did to it. Looking from the other direction, they did have a nice comments there. Again, the hallway kind of breaking the edges and connecting over. And then we did think of phys ed a little differently in terms of fitness wellness. Some very early sketches, conceptual ideas of what this might feel like instead of just a long hallway. We'll go through these and again, in terms of program, so we didn't build an addition here. It was about 30,000 square feet listed, and by the time we were done, we had about 5,000 square feet more programmable space in the same building with more flexibility. Yeah, just a piece of the library. We had all our traditional library pieces, and just get that out of the window, and where we want to go with our dynamic load, so kind of translating the old into something more new. This is the current floor plan. We're still tinkering, but these are some current renderings of what's being developed. I guess you know their school color. We're working with that too to see what else we can do, but we're working through that right now. So again, those are being approved or in construction. We want to make sure it's our job as a firm. We're dedicated to making sure we can build whatever we design and try to think crazy, and then but also make sure it works. Older buildings and way of doing things are fighting back all the time. I thought this was very interesting. I mean, things change. 1959 building. I mean, in 1959, Volkswagens had coffee makers. Who knew? Things change. Quick synopsis of post-industrial revolution through challenge of 2020 and beyond. This was created in 2020. So we know, you might you come into a school district that still has a one-room schoolhouse. We have a couple of those in Suffolk County still. More and more kids going to school in the 20s and 30s. You can tell what buildings were built then in the Northeast. The post-war surge, sprawl, experiments in the 60s and 70s, backlash in the 1980s. Out where I was, it was called tax pack, and they were against anything, any school expenditure ever. And then the 1990s, internet came into 2000s, an idea of 21st century design, and then 2020 kind of, so I say that, I call that a kind of a juncture point of next millennium. So as you're coming into a school district, you're gonna have a building from three of these eras or two. So how do you create any consistent experience of the students and the whole experience? So again, just more context, more things to figure out how to combine. Oyster Bay High School, I think we have a little bit of, this is why we're here today. We have a little reel here, we'll play that for entertainment. This is a fairly small project, but I'll just let it play and we'll go through. I believe that is Nanawall. This is a 712 building, so it's even more interesting to try to get the students to kind of blend. You see the historic panels that had to stay. And if you saw the outside of this, I think you feel the weight of all the masonry. Well, you see part of it. We've made the new entry here that this one addition, another addition, another addition, and then they wanted that to be the front entry. So that is reminiscent of the rest of the architecture. Right. And I think yours, right, big time. And didn't you say this used to be the locker room and that was the gym, right? The library. So this is what we started with, and I think you can see this is a massive bearing wall. Good times, right? So this is what we started with. That's what we ended with, but I think three-dimensionally it really comes to life because then they use the photo. These are the photos in the space. And again, you have 7th through 12th graders coming here. So we just went through and took, I'll show you all these photos. You've seen them guess you know their school color too. Yes. Well, it's part of the identity. So we went through and just tried to give them lots of different opportunities within that type of space. And that was the project. So they've got all kinds. They've got, you can't see it, there's a whole robotics thing going on and all that kind of good stuff.
We didn't even know they really wanted it until we went and talked to them. So, that's that whole helping them through the process and trying to take the feedback.
And it was good stuff at the ribbon cutting. One of the high school seniors said, we were all doubtful that this was even worthwhile to do. He said, and now he's like, I can't really explain it, but it works. And the seventh graders are over here and we're doing this. And we're like, oh, wait, we could do that. Everything that we would love to just, can you just bottle that up, please? And just like, we're not lying. Like there's such a leap of faith for so many people. And as you can tell, I mean, this is a lot of stuff, but it's what we're dealing with to try to communicate. This was on the second floor, right? That was first floor. So those three, and it's not going to be a radical difference in plan, right? And Tracy, what were you saying? There was like some kind of like bank teller window or something?
Yeah, that was a little business office where business office, and it was all closed off walls, and there was a little teller window where they would take money and do their transactions. And the other wall there, we had talked about early planning that we were just going to open it up with a big Nanawall, and then we actually got into construction and found out that all those we couldn't touch them.
So historic parks, historic preservation in New York State.
So the bank teller, up all the framing, took out all the panels and made glass for the control room. And then we reinforced the historical wall over here with new structural framing so that we can install sliding Nanawalls. So, we were able to achieve the goal. But what was fun about both of these projects was that, like Carolisa said, the client really just had these bonus spaces that they had no idea really what they were going to do. They wanted them to be 21st century kids. But what is that really? So really our goal was to open it up and provide as much flexibility for what they ended up using in robotics now. But for the next 40 years, I mean, who knows what the next it's really exciting. This school is kind of changed.
And take opportunity to kind of break down as much as we could that kind of wall, that tremendous wall with all kinds of good surprises of ducts and things that you find. So again, dealing with the big idea and then dealing with the building, but a client who was like, hey, let's go, let's go together. So then this is the final space there. There are those panels you were talking about. And a really nice broadcast studio. They have their own news anchor. They have, they have their morning show and everything. And we were at the river. We were hoping Billy Joel would show up, but he didn't show up. He came to the last. He might come to the next one. We don't know. And just celebrating. I mean, that's a really nice tech spot. Like it's kind of cool, and it's cool. The kids can see that right by the broad. It's all part of it. It's not hidden. It's not like, oh, you can't see this. No, that's what's going on. Harris High School. So this is multiple phases. This is also Nassau County. So this started before COVID, and really you can see it took a kind of design motif and just kept applying it to everywhere. They used to characterize their building as a flat brown pancake. So now it's a little more airy blue and white gray paint, So, but we're working with a really low space here, connecting out to a courtyard, and we have the open and closing of the Nanawall as well there. This is a more recent auditorium, very small, but rethought. So again, here kind of open, closed. That's it over there. It's actually redid all the serving, all the kitchen, everything in terms of that. This was an addition, and student voice said, this is by the front entry. We don't want to be exposed in our fitness room, so that's why it's solid there in the corner. This is looking on the inside back. They're the Herrick's Highlanders, HH. And then the back, though, was able to be opened and look out there up on a bit of a hill to look out. And there is an instructional opportunity in there within that space. And again, just going around every little capital project that we have, we're reincorporating the materials just to kind of rethink that. Green Acres Elementary. So this was in Scarsdale. This was opened in 2020. So that was fun. That was a lot.
The furniture layout we put together was nothing like we had designed.
Well, and remember, during COVID, you guys had to send 12 packets of materials to each committee member. Yeah, it was fun. So again, this is also a community school, very involved local community. So existing on the left, anywhere from 1918 to 1999, I think, additions. And then the actual solution. And a road, this is obviously their playfield. There's a street here. We tried. Town wouldn't let us build a bridge over it. We really wanted to. That would have been really cool. And very, very important that the architecture fit in vernacular, so we did work on that. So again, this whole thing to the front is an addition. Looking a little more at this was the oldest part of the building. You can kind of tell it's just a mishmash of all kinds of things. So we were able to rethink that. I'll put the old plan over there. So in blue was actually a built addition. We engulfed this kind of room in oblivion and kind of turned that into a kitchen and built around it. This was the largest piece here was a learning commons, which is also thought community-wise that there could be a speaker or presentation kind of at the angle of the L here. This opens and closes, and we just lots of things going on. Every room was touched. The entire program was rethought, and we kept balancing programmatic intent with existing space, with expectation, and we're able to get this going. Upstairs, really cut off. We're able to connect that a bit and deal with the site. And then there was an art room and orchestra in the basement that was just fragmented away. So with that, it says district here, but we actually did was developed a whole program of storage. So there's a whole idea and cooperative storage thing going on. So we have little parking spaces in each school for traveling kits and programs, as well as long-term storage in the basement, short-term storage up above, because the sizes of the rooms, we couldn't really change those. You know, we have 685, 796, we got these little rooms and they were nowhere to really go. Those were very fun conversations to have about square footage and education. I think it was the least stressful 8 months of my life.
At least you have that.
But we got it done. We got it done. So this is inside the new space. Is very important too. We had the beautiful windows in the gym, so we replicated those. The furniture is a little right after this. There's other things. We also, just to say in terms of planning, we absolutely made sure there was enough storage to actually make it be able to be flexible. So the furniture has somewhere to go while you do something else and it's open. Without the storage room, it really wouldn't work. Sorry, over here, that's kind of the open corner to the right. This is it closed. That's actually serves as a gym station, believe it or not. And then to the left, you have kind of a translucent writing wall that doesn't actually close. It just opens and closes as a surface, doesn't create a room. And there it is there. And then we had makerspace versus library in another part of the building, which had the wall there as well. So I've talked enough. A little more. Outdoor learning, another chapter for another time. This is just opened. This is a fun courtyard at a 4-5 elementary school in Garden City, Nassau County as well. And just to kind of sum up this a little bit, a couple little papers and just some snippets. Talked about that. Back in 21, kind of tried to use music as an example. You're listening to an orchestra. Somehow you can figure out what's happening from all the instruments and enjoy it all at the same time. So to try to get people to realize we're already doing this. So how do we kind of keep up with that and then have that influence how we design things? Dip in the ocean. This was just the whole thing on a metaphor about deciding to get into the ocean and kind of the trust that a student takes to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and eventually start swimming, get somewhere, and then come back and have had this wonderful experience, and how that could also affect how we design things to have students have that. Did the whole metaphor of how the human brain works and how we could use that as a metaphor. More recently, culture as the environment, as a starting point to design and express to give students a connection to their spaces. Let me read this one thing. It represents a switch in thinking about school facility planning and design from what to who, then why, and eventually how. Flip it a little bit and start with the people and what they need. This hasn't been published yet, but it's just a play on ChatGPT. I co-wrote this with the superintendent, and it'll probably be published later this month. But just this whole idea of what's really happening, leveraging opportunity, different levels of competition, what kids and people need to be prepared for, and how equilibrium helps us try to balance. With that, we thank you.
In addition to Nanawall, I do handle other product for certainty, Plastiform, ASI for wood, A4LE, GKD wire, so a full range of product. If you're ever interested, my cards, I'll have them out when we're done. So we are gonna, I'll take the clicker. We are gonna talk today about solutions for education. And it doesn't really matter much whether we're talking about education or general. These types of systems have been used pretty extensively throughout, throughout different types of projects. Doesn't matter if they're commercial or residential. The running joke for the longest period of time was always, I've never done this in a funeral home. I've quoted one recently, so that whole joke may be coming to an end. This is a job that was done with Canon. This is a piazza, and this is, I think, the third grade piazza. So this is not the common wall to the corridor. This is not the fire-rated wall for the corridor. This is common in the back of the space. So they can open it up and they use this in different ways. And we'll come back to this, I think, a little bit later in the program. So we are registered providers to AIA as well as IDCEC, so nothing I say or do should be construed as an endorsement, but please feel free to ask questions because I would much rather have this as an interactive discussion than just me boring you to tears.
And if you need a credit, please make sure to sign this before you leave. Thank you.
Yes, and it's credit and a half, Judy?
2
1.5
credits.
points? 2?
Because you get a full
Showroom
credit for the showroom tour and a full
visit
credit
for
for
this.
right? Okay.
Thank Angela if she lets that go through. So today the objectives are just to familiarize you with the terminology, the capability, and the use of these types of systems. We're going to show you how they can be used as part of your sustainable design. We're also going to show you how they can be used for health, safety, and welfare. I always say if a picture is worth 1,000 words, we're going to give you a whole new vocabulary by the time we're done. We are members of the Committee on the Environment, but for 3 phases. We help you with sustainable design, connectivity between daylight and through the windows, and then land use and site ecology. So that natural ventilation, that biophilia, how the space makes you feel. What's a large opening? Anybody have any thoughts on that? I always look at it as anything above 6 to 8 feet. At the end of the day, you can go get a French door, you can get a slider, you can hit that 6 to 8 foot mark relatively easily. But where do we go when we go beyond that? When you go beyond that, we can start to help you. 9 foot, this happens to be a 12-foot opening. It's a 1 door, 3 panels folding, but we don't have to stop there. This was one of the largest jobs that we had done for the longest period of time. This is the University of Oregon. Their upper level is 300 feet. It goes goal line to goal line. Game day, they make the decision, and I don't know if this shows it. Yes, 40 panels to the left, 40 panels to the right. I always laugh because everybody oohs and ahs. It's like, that's the money shot. You know, you have it closed, bang, it's open. Takes 2 men, probably 40 minutes, get the whole thing open before the game. But the engineering is the key to this. Okay, not the fact that we can put doors and windows into a space. Look at the cantilever. Okay, look at the roof. I mean, that to me is really the star of the show. The fact that we can make some panels go in and out of that space is interesting. The dead load, where we park, we have a stack of doors that's 36 inches by 10 foot deep on each side. Again, 8 pounds a square foot. So the engineering has to be thought through on this. This is not something that's taken lightly. The lower 2 levels are actually suites. So they're private suites. They can be opened or closed during the game. So it's not a continuous opening because they are individual suites. So you called and said, Bill, please come in. We have a project we'd like to talk to you about, as we've done many times. We're going to start with folding and sliding. We're going to listen. What are you trying to do? How can we help you? Whether we're folding or sliding becomes the first question because it changes everything that we do. With folding systems, we can be hinged as a group. Okay, as we showed you a few minutes ago over on the other side, we can be hinged to a jamb, we can be unhinged, but they're always going to be hinged in some way, shape, or form. They're going to fold in or out of the space. We can be segmented, we can go around a curve. This is a small library that was done. We have unhinged pairs in this particular case. Doors on the end, but you can bring the panels around, and that can be opened or closed in a matter of minutes. The ease of operation is always critical. As Kevin was talking about before, if they're not willing to use the space once you've designed it the way that it was intended, we failed. I always talk about this big sliding system we have over here. I'll never push that first and foremost on a residential application because on a day like today, when somebody goes, oh, I don't feel like dealing with it today, that's a fail. Folding systems you can open or close within 10, 15 seconds. Sliding systems have to start to be more somewhere where you can, a car dealership, a restaurant, places where it's going to be able to be used by somebody on staff. So next application, we can meet in a corner. Again, we don't necessarily turn the corner, but we can fold and bring panels to meet at the corner. Okay, sill options. This is a great place really once we get established as to what we're doing. This is where we want to start the conversation. Does it need to be ADA compliant? What type of weather? Are you going to have an overhang? Is it opening in or out of the space? Those are all things that the sill will help to determine. Higher design pressures with our hybrid sill can be up to 9 PSF, 6 PSF for an ADA compliant saddle. Then we can go into flush, and then for interior, we also offer something called a surface mounted interior sill. Our newer systems are always going to be bottom supported, but we do have a couple of older first generation products that can still be done as top supported systems. And they're specialty in where we typically want to use them. So this is Friends Seminary here on Long Island, University of Washington. This is actually a Silver Leads project. This was a botanical space. They needed doors. They needed to be able to get larger panels. Sorry? Oh, Friends Seminary in New York City. Yes, sorry. There's another one on Long Island. Yes, the other one. That University of Washington, though, they need to be able to transport those plants in and out of the space without fear of damaging sills and be able to move them through. So getting the doors out of the way was very critical for them. And then the Helios project in Miami is an all-glass system. So this is the Booker T. Washington project that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the program. So this is the different piazzas. They have a 4th grade, a 3rd grade. Every grade level has their own space that they can utilize. This allows the kids to be together before and after school, during lunch, at recess. They can utilize that space so no child left behind. If they need to, a child can be given additional instruction with an instructor in that space. When I was a kid, they would just, put you out in the hall. If you needed to take a test, they would, do whatever, even closets, whatever it took. Today, they design the spaces a little more thoughtfully so that they're able to be used. So thermally broken systems are available. This is an art building in California, Watsonville, California. Our systems can be thermally broken. We use a thermal strut. Okay, it is a glass reinforced polyamide. It's stronger and gives us better thermal performance than the older version of poured and abridged. One of the other things that it offers is a stronger acoustical. We're able to get higher STC performance out of that. But then additionally, we can paint different color interior and exterior. So if there was an application, it allows us the ability to do different color if need be. All glass folding. So everything we've talked about up to now has either folded into the space or out of the space. This happens to be center pivot. Okay. It's not particularly strong acoustically because you have just brush seal top and bottom. Everything else we've talked about has actually had a gasketed seal at the jambs and at the head. This one, because it center pivots, there's just a brush at the top. You'll also notice there's no sill. We're just going into sockets. We can put doors on this system. Okay, it would have to be hinged on the end of the stack, hinged on the jamb. We can do some things with all glass where we could have doors on the end of the stack as well, but center pivot is available in that version. In solid wood systems, we offer a number of standard species: Marante, Sepali, mahogany, pine, spruce. We are doing away with FSC. In 15 years of offering, I don't think I've ever sold one. It's a costly option. It is still available, in the future if it's needed, but we are suspending it as a standard offering. With all wood systems, we can give you a U value down to a 0.19. Tested 7.5 PSF. Again, we can work with different sills. We can do different things. Wood is nature's best insulator, so you're going to have a really good performing system, but it comes with maintenance if this is on the exterior of the building. Aluminum clad over solid wood. This system will get you down to a 0.17, so we will meet passive house standards. Again, same species. You'll notice that these are always laminated beams. They're the same species all the way through, but there's no garbage wood. At the end of the day, if you need to refinish this in 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road, you're going to sand it and you'll be on the same species all the way through. There's not a veneer. The rain screen is clipped into place. It is not glued directly to the wood. It's screwed and then clipped into place so that it becomes a rain screen. Air is able to move through, moisture gets in, moisture is able to breathe and then get out. So it has no effect with thermal expansion and contraction with the two dissimilar materials. Infill can be changed. This job, this was one of the schools in Texas where it was done throughout the county. They centralized the plumbing. The teachers wrote us this great and wonderful note of the 100 ways that they used the space that the designers and the school board never anticipated. Everything from a child or a teacher having a bad day and needed a timeout to them utilizing it as an office. The janitorial staff loved it because at the end of the day, it was less sinks to have to clean up, less to maintain, and they could centralize that. The infill, though, changed by grade level. So the younger kids, they could put it a little lower. The older kids, they moved it up a little bit higher. But it gave the teachers the ability to monitor into that space if they were using it in some other way, shape, or form. Again, common wall to the corridor is the door to the right. They also came back to us and they told us they utilized this in the event of any type of thing going on in the building. They could use that as a huddle space. So the classrooms looked empty, they would shut the doors and the classrooms just appeared to be empty. So just one other way that they utilized it. All of our locks and our hardware is concealed to give a much cleaner application. You'll never see chute bolts on the face of the door, handles only. And then the one thing I always love to talk about with our handles, and I can show you when we're done, is we have a screw head on the back side of our handle. It literally fits in, it stops forced entry. So if it's an exterior application, nobody can go along and they can't find a chute bolt to jimmy open. You physically have to be inside to pull the handle off and then turn it up. We use a sprung handle, and that sprung handle keeps you from basically scraping your knuckles as you go to open the door. You're not going to hit them on the glass stop as you come around. The engineering behind this tends to be a little, I always laugh, true German engineering. They overthink it and then they overproduce it. At the end of the day, our newer technology, we have adjustability within our hinges. Okay, so that if the building moves or settles, you don't have to find shims. You can literally make a 3/16 adjustment on either jamb. So you have up to 3/8 of play within the jambs if the building moves. And then one of the other things that we do, we use less hinges than we used to on some of our our newer systems, we just have hinges top and bottom, but we use these alignment clips. Basically, they keep the pressure on the door, helps to align, gives us a higher design pressure, and the ability to have a more consistent close every time. And then we, instead of waiting for the contractors to do this, we always like to span and touch either side of the thermal break. Problem with that is if you're touching metal to metal on the thermal break, you've destroyed it. So we're now giving a much larger washer with a thermal break already built in on the back side of it. So you get a better installation because we're distributing the load more uniformly, but we're ensuring that thermal break is continuous. The other thing that you can do with our newer system, we are concealing that attachment, but you have the ability to put low voltage wiring through there. So if you need to put an alarm, if you need to do something for mag locks, you have the ability to wire and get that through as a low voltage system. And we can show you that. So here in the States, over 80% of what we do are folding systems. And I'm proud to say I'm part of the reason for that. Okay, at the end of the day, if you call me and tell me you have a project, this is my first stop. This is where I'm going. They're easier to operate. They're going to give you better air and water performance numbers. They're going to be less expensive. We can give you better acoustical performance. The load is contained within the plane of the opening. And what I mean by that is if you imagine that this is two panels of a folding door, when it's closed, everything works. I don't need any additional track. The reason we have a top and bottom track is because it would sag without it. But I don't need to have any additional track to hold up that outside edge when this is open. So the sill and the head track do all of the work for us, regardless of whether it's top or bottom supported. So our floor supported technology, again, going back to our German engineering, we use a Gothic arch and a Roman arch. They're not a mated surface. And when I first saw this, I didn't understand that. I thought it would be better if you had both surfaces being mated. But the engineers came back to me and said, well, think about it. If you have a Gothic arch and a Roman arch, you have minimal contact. Minimal contact means ease of operation. One of the things that we pride ourselves on, any of our systems, if you see us at AIA, if you come here into the showroom, the ability to open and close any of these doors with a single hand. Shouldn't have to grunt, doesn't matter if it's Judy or myself doing it, you're always going to have the ability to move them. Nobody has to strain in order to be able to operate these things. Nobody's eating. Any math majors? This is an education group. 5-panel system. Any quick guesses as to how many ways we can configure that? We're showing you 3, but you can go 1 left, 4 right. You can go in swing or out swing. You can reverse that. So these 3 literally will give you 12 different configurations because you can go in or out, left or right, and you can pretty much move our way through it. So the ability to do unlimited numbers of panels, we can do raised kicks, horizontal mullions, different colors, different systems, really does start to open it up and become countless as to the ways that we can configure this. Then we can throw in a whole new way of doing things. These are unhinged quads or 6s. So we can have a door hinged to the jamb. I can take 4 panels and open them up. They could be hinged to the right, or I could slide them over and park them on the left. I can start to put in as many groups of 4 or 6 or combinations as we need. I can do a door on the right and the left. So it does become kind of, unlimited ways that we can start to configure these systems out. This is unhinged panels. So this is just, again, pairs. You have a door on the left and right. This became really big during the pandemic when people needed to force their way into using the spaces differently. You could start to leave doors open on the left and right. You could fold some of the panels out, leave panels in the middle. You could distinctly have entrances and exits just based on the way the panels were opened. Fold flat. So this is a unique system to us. Kind of bizarre. I always laugh at, marketing puts this in and they show this. I would never do this here in the Northeast on an exterior, ever. They have a track in the ceiling and a track in the floor. Flush sill, non-thermally broken. It's a disaster in terms of an exterior application. So why do I show it to you? Because in education, it becomes a beautiful thing. All of a sudden, you have a system that will give you a 36 STC. I don't have panels standing out in the middle of the doors. Kids aren't doing this and walking into a panel. They're now folded back into a niche. You have the ability to go to an 18-foot opening. This has to be done in a non-fire rated situation. So it's a common wall between either two classrooms, a lab and a classroom, or just a gathering space. Can't be a fire rated system, but it becomes really, really elegant as a solution. So sliding systems become your best choice, and I'll let take it away.
I'm Megan Lalone. I'm with Nanawall. I'm the Northeast Regional Manager. Thank you so much, Bill, for starting us off on the folding systems. I'll now go ahead and put it through sliding systems. So like Bill said, 80% of the time, you're gonna go with a folding system. But when is that sliding system going to work for you, and what is a sliding system? So our sliding systems are able to make a lot of different flexible changes. So if you're doing a lot of different corners, if you need to have it pocketed away into a separate area, this is when the sliding systems are really going to be your best friend. And what's nice is, like we saw at the very beginning in that Oregon University stadium, you can have all of those tuck away into a separate closet, so it's no longer within the plane of the opening. And again, virtually unlimited, especially when you're coming to stadiums. So we're able to do those beyond the plane, but you can see here that there's a segmented curve. And the way that we're able to do these segments and everything is because we actually have all the weight that is carried by that top track. With that top track, we have a oil rubbed bronze that goes opposite of itself. And while it's going like that, it can slide very smoothly. I don't know if we have one in here. That's okay. You guys are going to see it in just a moment, and you'll even see our great Judy operate it, and you'll see how easy it is for everyone. And what's nice about that is because they go against each other and they have that smooth operation, you don't get that racking that you would in some of those other traditional top hung systems. What's also very nice about those is they're keyed, so that way you can't accidentally throw them into the wrong spot. They'll always naturally drift into exactly where they're supposed to be parked. So there's a lot of sill options for these. We can do them on exterior or interior. This is our low profile saddle sill, or you can even go as small as a floor socket. What's nice about our floor sockets, and you'll actually see them over in the corner here, is the floor sockets have an adjustability inside of them. So listen, I've worked with many a contractor, and I'm sure you all have too, and no hole is usually ever perfect. What's nice about those is you can actually move it around a little bit just to make sure that that's exactly in the right spot. We have our flush sill and our surface mounted interior sill as well, and that one is ADA compliant. So our sliding panels are a lot like our aluminum panels, and we can do a lot of different systems. So we can do aluminum, wood, and all glass. So here's a great example of a wood frame system. So what I thought was so fascinating that Kevin had talked about is those historic renovations and what you're doing with these old buildings. And sometimes you even have to match that aesthetic that's happening. And so this is a great example of a college that had that Gothic, academic kind of feel. And they wanted to keep that throughout, but they also wanted to be able to tuck these doors away. So you can see not only did they choose a wonderful inlay for those different colors for the glass, but they were also able to use a wood system there and get aesthetic properties as well as acoustical properties. The all glass system, so actually where Judy is standing right now, we have our all glass acoustic system. And what's great about this is we have a very clear H gap inside of it. So those make it so that the panels don't knock into each other. That's giving you acoustical property, but it's also a non-yellowing gasket, which we have been around for a very long time. And we were finally able to find a manufacturer who we felt confident in is not going to have that yellowing gasket that can happen with a lot of those clear plastics. Again, there's that acoustically rated all glass in Aurora University, and this is one of those lab spaces that you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. The open corner detail, I love this because only at University of Hawaii Cancer Center can you have a beautiful open corner like this that is probably used most of the year. So this is really just an absolutely lovely application. And what's interesting is the configuration here. You'll see that all of the panels are just kind of in a very uniform stack. And we can go as simple with our configuration stacks or as complex with our configuration stacks like you saw in the university stadium. So it gives a lot of versatility for that. A segmented design, I kind of call this a pleated design because it reminds me of like a pleat on that. And really, tell us more, Bill. So they did this for an acoustical purpose. I thought it looked cool. So look at that. Dual purpose. That's very cool. So sliding glass walls, we have had those all completely tested, just like our folding glass walls. We get U different values, structurally PSFs, and acoustical ratings. Again, what's nice is you do get a lot more configurations and that versatility. And what is very great about this is if you need an egress door, you can have that egress door anywhere inside the system. And it's very easy to operate. We'll have Judy again show us that a little bit later. But even someone who, you know, is small in stature or large in stature like Bill is able to operate these doors and configure that egress door no matter where it is in the system. And now we'll talk a little bit about our minimal framed, and it's kind of easy because it's right here. Oh my gosh, wow. So this is our Zero. Our Zero is kind of the latest and greatest, and this is a minimal frame multi-tracked system. As you can see, the sight lines are 1 5/16 all around, picture frame purpose. When these are closed, you get some major views. So I'm not going to close them all the way because obviously we're having a little bit of an event right now, so you guys don't want to all be trapped inside. But you can see the way that these operate. I just did that with one hand. These are very large panels, so the ease of operation. But if you have a very large application with glass, because we can go up to 10 by 15 with our 03, you can have these automated as well. Hello. We have acoustical properties, so we've seen these used in interior applications as well. And again, that ease of use, we have a mag lock on this. I know that a couple of people were playing with that magnetic lock a little bit earlier. So there's a lot of different configurations that we offer with those large spaces. Again, here's a little cross section where you see we have those thermal breaks as well as that 1 5/16. Obviously, as you're going deeper in system, we can do a 5-track, but Bill is one of those people who likes to push it all the way to a 7-track.
Panel widths, we publish 7'4" because that's what has to fit in the container. So when you take any of these panels that are 14, 15 foot long, 7 foot wide, you have to turn them sideways to fit into a shipping container. We're doing a job right now down in Deal where the panels are 10 foot wide. So open top containers are a thing. We have to basically then pray that they don't put another container on top of your open top container, but we've had good luck.
And all of you are very lucky because Bill is your local representative and he is the best at twisting engineers' arms and making sure that the architects are getting exactly what they want. So we get it tested, we get it out there, and Bill's your guy to help make that happen. So we'll go into a little bit more of what I thought Kevin did great, and that's the inspirational of why you want to design with these large openings. And it's really to enhance that learning process, bringing that indoor-outdoor, that greenery, that live light versus artificial light. You know, light throw is one of those things that's so important in a building. And you can even see here where we have that exterior wall and we're able to have light all throughout the space because we have this open system, right? We're able to create large inviting entrances. Like, I feel that this is such a beautiful way to showcase where you're really creating a sense of space. You're creating an epicenter and a third space for the community. Maximizing that natural lighting. Again, we talk about light throw, we talk about what views of nature and daylight does for the brain and for operating. There's a very interesting study that had 2 projects in Chicago or Detroit. I don't remember quite off the top of my head. And they were exactly the same low-income housing. 100%, everything's the same. All of the people get into the different buildings by a lottery system. And the only difference is one had a concrete space around it that you had to use to get into the building. And the other building had a lot of green space and lawn that you had to use to get into the building. And what they found was so interesting, that the amount of crime was lower in the building that had the green space around it. So it really does impact not just the way your brain develops and learns, but it impacts your mood. So I think that's fascinating when you're talking about that use of light.
I can just say that.
Yeah.
Having a sense.
Right, and that flexibility, because now you can even see it in this pool application.
So this is actually an interesting application because they're able to turn their HVAC on and the lights. During the summer months, they can go in much longer periods, so they lower their energy bills. They're not having to do the full ventilation of the building. They allow for natural light and air to move in and out of the space.
Well, and indoor pool areas themselves have such an issue with the chlorine and the degradation of materials inside of it. So being able to have that building breathe in a more natural way, I think is a fantastic use of that flexibility. Again, you're getting that interior space management. Like we were talking about the unhinged panel, you're able to move those back and forth and have entrances and exits as you will. And the next one I actually put in here is a project in Pennsylvania that our rep did, and he loves this project. And I got to meet the architect of this project recently. And what they were able to do here is they put kind of a frosted light here on the bottom. And you can see they use it all the time. They use it as a whiteboard space. They use it as community space. So not only are they using this system when it's open, but they're using it just as much when it's closed. And here's that case study that Bill was talking about. I'll let Bill go ahead and take it away.
Sure. So this was Sandra's, again, just hopefully enhance the learning space. Case study?
Yeah, it's in here.
This is a different.
Nope.
No?
This
Okay.
is the Booker one.
Yeah, but case study is on Sanders.
Oh, sorry, this is the case study on Booker. Technical issue, don't worry.
There's 2 different projects completely. As I mentioned, so this is common area between the 2, 3 different grades, same grade, 3 different classrooms of the same grade, and then they do the same thing for each of the grade levels. So it's Canon design. This is a project in Champaign. At the end of the day, they had that need. They wanted to be able to expand the space. They wanted the kids to be able to collaborate. They wanted to be together. And by putting this as a common wall between, they're able to be together during lunch, during breaks, during recess, and then they can utilize that space after the walls are closed. You still have the division, yet you can have kids out there with another instructor. They can have different classes going on. If somebody needs remedial attention, we take care of it within this space. And again, just greater flexibility, ways that they can take different configurations. They can open up 2 classrooms. One of the things that we don't think about, because we're adults and we work in different industry, the ladies room, no, you don't have to stop and think about it. You have 20 or 30 kids. Alone. When I was a kid, you would point one of your knucklehead classmates to the monitor, and the teacher would go out and take a phone call, or they would go to the ladies' room or the men's room. Can't do that today. It has to be another adult. So being able to open up 2 spaces and have one teacher monitor both spaces is easy. Nobody has to call the office and send it out. Dealt with locally. So this actually won awards for the architectural firm.
Yes.
It was a wonderful project.
So the awards that this one won was the William W. Caldell Citation for Design Excellence from the American School and University, However, the other one is the Distinction Design Award from the Illinois Association of School Boards.
So, where are we using these types of spaces? So we're going back to all these different types of spaces, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to just show you a lot of different ideas. Education for flexibility, cafeterias, constructed looking at libraries. So this is actually one of BBS's. This is St. John's in Bayshore.
So what I love about this one, when I am telling the story of this, it's great because not only are you having that flexible space in the library for community space and that third spot, but you're able to give the town a space that they can have a town hall meeting, or if they want quiet hours and are having a private committee meeting, they're able to close that up. So I thought that was really a wonderful application of being able to have not just a space for education, but a third place for the entire town.
So this one always, these types of applications always crack me. This is what we call type A parking. Just a single door hinged down. Everything else then opens at 90 degrees and parks in front of the door. Owner of the company always gives me a little bit of crap with the supply way to say this. We show at least 12 different variations of how you get doors out of the plan. Parallel, perpendicular, remote stack. Why do you always do type A parking? Ways to keep it simple, stupid. This is simple. Nobody can confuse it. We can't reverse it. The panels have to come back out in order. It's like, I know, but we can do so many cool things. It's like Baskin Robinson's cereal flavors. Chocolate and vanilla. This is vanilla. This is easy. Nobody can mess it up, and it works. Again, it doesn't need management. It doesn't need somebody from janitorial. It doesn't need maintenance. Somebody can just say they want this open. Again, if the librarian or the instructor isn't going to do this, it's a fail. So the ease of operation becomes critical. And it doesn't take special training, really, but it does need a little bit of insight. This is, we've offered in the tech. We were talking about this earlier. I'm always happy to come out to a project and show whoever needs to do it, how to do it. We have had, issues with our all-glass systems where Chase Bank put it in, but they let everybody touch it. At the end of the day, when it's all glass and glass is touching glass, it's not hard to do. You just have to be mindful of what you're doing. Stadiums. This is also a fun one because this is the University of Boise State University. So the same athletic director that did the University of Washington did this. Stadium 90. This team won the national championship, I think, in 2009. They built a new stadium. This goes back of end zone to back of end zone because it's bigger than they had at 2 minutes in the old one. So to his old boss, a little bit of a gotcha. Again, leisure and gymnasium facilities. So being able to practice in the environment without actually dragging the equipment out into the environment. If you're in the ski team, you want to practice and really work in the cold weather. This is a great way to do it.
So I have to talk about that one just for a second. I am from Salt Lake City.
She's from
Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah, that's why I'm so friendly. So it is hot in the middle of the winter, surprisingly. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so hot here because it's humid, but that dry heat is the best kind of heat. I just want to be back in the desert for my hair. So they actually do use this constantly. Like having that open, I remember being a teenager and skiing and snowboarding in a tank top. So this is a real application. It's not just for show. They open this up and have that fresh air circulating while they're training.
So how well do they perform? We test for everything. It's interesting because here in the United States, you can get away with pretty much anything in testing. Because we have European roots, German engineering. When we test, in order to test any of the systems in Europe, we have to have 20,000 cycles on the door. It means pretty much a lifetime of use. This is a front door, 20,000 cycles is not that big of a deal. But when you're talking about a folding system, that could be a lifetime of use. We operate it every day for 365 days a year, which we're not going to do here in the Northeast. Just think about how long it takes to go to 20,000 cycles. We test for air and water, design pressure, thermal. We test OATC, STC, all sorts of forced entry. We actually, in Europe, have a criminal test. We'll give people who have reformed, in theory, whatever tool, whatever you want. Sledgehammer, hammers, saws, screwdrivers, crowbars. They give them 10 minutes. If they can get in, they watch so that we can improve. This is actually a spray test where they're actually running on salt spray or high pressure water. We shoot 2x4s out of cannons to test for a hurricane rating. This is one I'd love to go play with. First time we did this test, we actually passed and turned the systems around, replaced the broken glass. So we tested the same system as an in-swing and an out-swing system, replacing the glass. So the frames had already been hit. You have to strike the frame, you have to strike the glass, you have to strike it in a number of places in the test. The test at the time was $250,000, closer to 400, I think, these days. So in addition to that, we do operating cycles. Again, we deal with people who are safe. Swing door, as we'll show you in a few seconds, the incorporated swing door, we use battering. Hit it a million times. Go open, close the door back. They ran the cycle test a million times. No breakdown, no wear and tear. I feel very confident going into a car dealership or a country club, somewhere where you might have an irate customer like a bank, because I've already seen the system operate like the most irate customer walk out of the place. We test our finish. Okay? A little bit of everything. How are we on?
We're actually running a little bit behind,
Okay,
so
we're gonna, I think, just skip through this, okay? But we do have OITC and STC ratings, so if you need them, certainly we need that for classroom spaces. We can get you up to a 45. I know you want to talk about Taylor Swift and put them up, but bye-bye. Okay, so how do we install? Okay, it's always the same deflection criteria. Lesser than over 720 or a quarter inch of span. Systems can weigh anywhere from 4 pounds all the way up to 15 pounds a square foot, depending on the system. We do offer certified installation. And what that means is they're trained. They understand what they're doing. They're not into the buy and resell of the product. They're simply installing and they've been trained. What that means is they're not using stick level when they're going out to install. They're using a laser or some other type of large scale leveling system. They do our service and warranty work, which means at the end of the day, if the groups that do it right the first time, we'll send them out and they're done. So they'll do a good job. This is a project that was done for an amenity space in Toronto, 15 stories up. So here in North America, this is probably one of the more hostile environments that hit the negative numbers constantly throughout the winter. But this is a luxury building, and this is our amenity space. And we actually do have a video testimonial from the gentleman who runs the building. Couldn't have gotten a better testimonial if we could pay him. This is an 8-panel system. Basically, they have a swing door on the side. This was actually, I'm going to screw this up, Star Wars, Star Trek.
Star Trek.
But it was actually used as the interior space in the bridge that was getting blown back.
There was a space battle outside of it.
Overshadowed it, so we didn't get to see it. So, operable glass walls basically can help in renovation. We can give you a lot of practical experience on the flexibility of space, ways to bring in natural light and air, pretty much anywhere.
Sure, yeah. You're fine. So again, just hitting on those key points, we are great for that flexible space, that 21st century school design and beyond. Indoor-outdoor connectivity, again, that light throw is so important when you're designing and being able to use that natural light instead of those artificial lights. And an elegant way to expand views and bring that nature inside for biophilic design. Of course, we're thermally broken for interior and exterior use. Our thermally broken systems have a dry gasket system, which in my opinion is more superior than the wet glazing systems. air and water resistance, and STC. So we want to thank you. And now, because we're talking about the education of the world, we're going to hand show and tell over to Judy.
I don't know how I'm going to be videographer and presenter all at the same time, but awesome. So please go ahead and pull one panel. Yeah, no, please. That's the whole point. And so this is our multi-track zero. This is 10 feet tall, 21 feet tall. And so you can keep pushing until it hits the first panel. So then take a pause there. There you go. And if you want to keep going and pick up the second panel, go ahead. It's generally a little bit better to move one panel at a time, but as you can see here with this example, with just one person, you can even pick up the second panel and move it all the way. This is the one unit, if you choose to, can add an automation motor at the top with a third party. We like to refer a company called Summit Automation, but you can also use different parties as well. Let me just get to the other side real quick and I'll show you the mag lock. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so also this is also very popular in commercial installations. And so what we've done here on this side of the unit is put in a magnetic lock. And so nowadays with entrances and exits needing key cards, PIN codes, magnetic locks are absolutely a thing. And so this is a great way to showcase that we are capable of meeting those requests. Oops. Once that kicks in, there we go. It's not going anywhere. So there we go. Okay. So that's the zero. And then I'm just going to touch on the 740, which is this wood and white one over here. Okay, so we're going to get into the folding because this is, as you heard, the bread and butter of what we offer here. And so one biggest trick I would like to offer, as we have so many amazing architects in here, is the number of panels. And so generally with these folding units, average maximum size is 3'3". So whatever opening size you're looking at, divide it by 3, approximately 3 foot per panel, and then you get your panel count. So then, based upon your panel count, then you can start really understanding how to design this. If odd number of panels or even number of panels is your biggest secret to understanding this. So in this particular example, we have 3 panels. It is an odd number. And so with that odd number, that single or number 3 or number 5 can be this amazing swing door. So if you can have your everyday door, move in, move out, move your grill, set it up, ready to go. And then when everybody shows up and it's party time, then you open it up the rest of the way. And so, but if you have an even number of panel, then you have that V and W shape. And so even number versus odd number, it's a fantastic way to be able to understand how to go about designing these systems and where you want the swing door. Couple of things that I want to touch on with this particular unit. It's one of our very gorgeous units where it's solid wood on the inside, a very easy to maintain aluminum cladding on the exterior side. As you can see on the finish wall behind Costa, we have 50 solid colors that you can choose from. That's included in standard options. And then as you get closer in here, you get to see the butterfly alignment clips. You'll be seeing it on the interior side here. And that's what helps eliminate the third hinge. So visually, if you were to come to the exterior side, on the white side for this one, you'll see in the joining panels, hinges at the top, hinges at the bottom, and a very clean line in the between. So we really believe in that visually clean aesthetic. And so we've also put in inserts. And so traditionally, if you look at some of our legacy models, you'll see all the thermal break gaps, you'll see all the attachment points, but with the newest generation 4 that we call it, we have put in inserts to cover all 4 sides. And then the clips that hold these inserts there's also a little mini clip on the inside to hold an Ethernet or a low voltage cable. And so if you want to run a low voltage cable through this, have it come exit here and have like, additional electronic security, we have put in a place for you to be able to hide that. So we really helping you try to get up to date in the solutions for operable glass walls. And while we are here on the folding, I'm going to show you the 4-fold next. So we're going to get over to the black unit over here. Perfect. So with the 4-fold, so as I said earlier, even number versus odd number. And so we have an even number of panels here. And so you get that gorgeous V shape. Or in this case, it's a 4-fold. So you get to see the W shape. If you were to do this, 1 panel to the left and 3 panels to the right, then you can do the swing door on the 1 panel side, and then the swing door on panel number 3 and go opposite ways. Or if it's a larger environment where you don't know what you want to do for the day and want to have the option of how to design traffic flow, how to be able to rearrange a space, this 4-fold or 6 panels in this V and W shape will allow you to be able to designate the panel stack wherever you need to place it for the moment. And so what this allows you to do, in addition to having the flexibility of where you put the panel stack, is you can have multiples. And so traditionally, you maxed out at 6 panels in a train. But with this version, what you can do now is you can have multiples of 4 or multiples of 6. And so this, if you had, the whole span of the showroom, let's say, we can have multiples of these 4s, make one gigantic opening, and then you can place your panel stacks wherever you want to within this entire run. And so it gives you so much more flexibility and what you want to do, because traditionally you would have a swing door on one side and the panel stack will be all the way on the other side. With this option, you can even have all the panels with the swing door if you choose to. This is the narrowest aluminum profiles on the market currently, and so we get to help you maximize the glass, maximize the openings, and still really not sacrifice at all on your thermal performance. And so depending on the double or triple glazing, depending on the sill that you select for the exterior, we can definitely help you reach passive house standards, 0.3. And so this is a fantastic solution to be able to know about when you are trying to design flexible spaces. And so last but not least, I'll just briefly show you this sliding. And so what single track sliders can do, as Megan mentioned, is that it really allows you the flexibility to, I think the biggest thing that this allows you to do is to have flexibility in the panel stack. Everything that we looked at the folding, it's perpendicular to the opening. And so it really sticks out. If you look at this one, for example, it is parallel to the opening. And so it has a really slim profile. So you can even put a closet here and hide all these panels. But then when you are ready to close it off, and I don't think I'll hit the food because we designed it that way. So there we go. Look at that. Just missing the brownies. This is what single track sliding can do. When you are particularly here, oh, I have to release this side first and then close it. Okay. There we go. And so particularly here in the city where you have columns jutting up right in front of your face, blocking your view, you have a very limited footprint that you're working with, but you need to have a flexible operable glass wall. The single track sliding, yes, it's top hung. So there's a lot more structural considerations you have to put in mind. There's a little bit more steel overhead that you will have to plan for. But with that said, if you can make those conditions met, it gives you the opportunity to put in a partition where you want it and how you want it. And so Last thing is, this is one thing that folding can't do that sliding can do. I'm not gonna set it up right this second but afterwards, if anybody's interested, we can do a more detailed demo. This is a swing door, and you can tell by the conversion box and the closer up top. So in this entire run, when all the panels are closed and you just want that pass-through door, you can specify one in a single track slider. And so with that said, our single track slider can turn corners, do the angle changes, have an incorporated swing door, and so it gives you a lot more flexible solutions and options than a traditional folding. But again, as you can see, the panels just move one at a time. I have to push them manually. You can't really automate this one. So it's a little bit more work to incorporate. However, with all that said, this can help you achieve that. And so those are like the really key main ones that I at least wanted to touch on with everybody here. And then if we wanted to circle back around after Sky Farm to touch on some of the glass units, if anybody has time, I would be happy to do so.
All right, so welcome everyone to Sky Farm LIC. This is a brand new endeavor for the Variety Boys and Girls Club of Queens. My name's Costa Constantinidis. I used to work with AIA in my previous life in city government. I was chair of the Environmental Protection Committee for 8 years for the New York City Council. I was the lead sponsor of Local 97, for those of you that know it. It's a law that forces large buildings like this one to drastically retrofit and reduce their carbon emissions. I came to the Variety Boys and Girls Club about 3 years ago in the midst of a massive redevelopment project. Right now, we serve about 4,000 kids every year. We're able to allow them to come in every day, get a hot meal, get homework help, and then do the things that they love and find their passion, whether it's sports or STEM, the arts. We have all sorts of, we have fashion rooms, swimming, a dance studio. There are lots. We are looking to go from our current space, which is 27,000 square feet, to 110,000 square feet, because that 4,000 number I told you before sounds like a really big number, but there are 10,000 young people in this catchment area below the poverty line. So even though we're serving 4,000, and that sounds like a big number, we need to serve more than 10,000 kids to be able to meet the demand in this community, because our programs are free. We don't like a YMCA, not to denigrate that model, but we don't sell memberships. Our kids come to us for free. I go out and fundraise to bring in funding for our kids. And right now we're looking to build the first planetarium in the borough of Queens, a 1,000-seat arena, a regulation swimming pool, a 200-seat black box theater, a 400-seat school, a partridge in a pear tree, all of it, with 230 units of housing above it, all affordable, with 60 of those units set aside for kids aging out of foster care, because that's a huge vulnerable population in the city of New York, where a lot of those kids, after the agreement with the foster parent ends, sadly, they end up on the streets and they end up homeless. So we want to give those kids their first apartment and give them the wraparound mental health services, school-based services, and to be able to think about what their lives can be and should be. And all of that, by the way, is going to be carbon neutral. Our building will be, completely carbon neutral, geothermal, solar, heat pumps, all of it. So we're doing that right here on 21st Street and 30th Road. Last year, we were approached by the leaseholder here, Brooklyn Grange, who was here for 10 years. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, they let their garden, their rooftop farm overgrow. Now, they're a for-profit entity. They're a great organization. But they were never going to sell enough produce, be able to aggregate enough produce to sell it cheap enough. So they approached us and said, our model's not working. We think you can make this work for your kids. If you see that power plant over there, those 3 stacks, our kids
live primarily west of 21st Street. That's the largest power plant in New York State right there. And there's a cost to that. Every time those power plants click on, especially the peakers, those that click on hot days like this at peak demand, they release PM 2.5, nitrous oxide, sulfur oxide, all the crap that gets in your lung that causes asthma. West of 21st Street is higher than the Queensboro average for asthma rates. There's also something else there because of what Robert Moses did. Besides just citing a power plant, that redlining led to lack of investment, which include lacks of supermarkets. So there's like one supermarket west of 21st Street. So the kids that we serve are not only have asthma rates higher than the Queensboro average, they don't have access to healthy green food on a regular basis. So when they approached us about taking over this farm, we looked at a way to marry sustainability and learning about the energy revolution, renewable energy and how that's changing, going to change our community, and healthy eating, healthy growing, together in a program for free to get kids up on the roof and help them learn where their food comes from. So we took it over last July. We got a grant from the New York Power Authority to renovate. That side is already renovated by the elevator east. We were going to do this side too. Next year, when you come, you'll see a nice climate-controlled canopy, a sensory garden, a washing packing station with an outdoor kitchen. We couldn't do that this year because our landlord's doing roof repair this winter. So they said us, Costa, please don't put up all that stuff because we're going to have to take it down anyway. So I had to wait. So my donor will wait a year, gratefully, but we got that side done. So we're going to have 6 benches installed. We have a little education center at the end there on the east. We have a new pathway. You can see here on this side, the floor is a little cracked up. So we're going to have that all fixed as it is on the other side. So look, we were able to have so far this year close to 500 kids on the roof already between school trips and after school programs, all for free. We're producing about 150 pounds of food a week. We were able to give the majority to our kids, but those, there was a week, 2 weeks ago where the schools were closed on Friday, so I had no kids. So we ended up giving it to a food pantry, so we formed a new partnership with a food pantry. And this is leading to other models where now I'm being approached by restaurants saying, we want to redo our building, we want to put a rooftop farm. Can your kids run that farm and then we'll serve the food in our restaurant? So roof to table. So we're excited about exploring those options. We really look at rooftop farming. I'm a big believer that climate change is real. We're going to lose 8% of our farmland nationally. Cities are going to have to change their model. Rooftop gardens are going to become much more of a norm. So we're looking forward to helping to close even a little bit food deserts and hunger and closing some of those gaps. So that's kind of what we envision here for Sky Farm LIC. We're going to expect, oh, by the way, over here, this plot is actually LaGuardia Community College's plot. We're partnering with the college as part of their urban agriculture program. They're going to have college students getting their certificates in urban agriculture, and partly because of the work they're doing on our roof. So we're trying to train the next generation of rooftop farmers as well. So this is our model. This is what we're hoping to accomplish here. I'm glad that Nanawall and Judy, we have connected, and you guys do great stuff. And I'm excited to, be a tenant here. And our big, I know that you were pointing out Kaufman Astoria Studios. Our big dream here is Cookie Monster, if you watch Sesame Street now, runs a food truck. Believe it or not, he now is a food truck guy, and he has another Muppet that he runs the food truck with. And he's a terrible business partner, as you can imagine Cookie Monster would be, because he's always eating everything that's in the food truck. So whatever they order, if it's an eggplant parmesan, they're like, oh, Ganga, I ate the eggplant. But then they go to the farm to get a new eggplant, and the kids get to learn on TV about eggplants and what they are. And actually, they're a fruit, not a vegetable. And all this really interesting facts about the farm and about eggplants. So we've actually pitched Sesame Street, because they film right here at Kaufman, about doing a Cookie Monster and Ganga segment about having the kids come to the urban farm and have them learn about how, in their own neighborhoods, in buildings like this, that there is going to be, you know, there are farms and there are active ways of getting healthy food in your own backyard. So we're hoping that Sesame Street will do that because they film right there at Kaufman. So that's our big dream. Thank you all for coming this morning, this afternoon. And I actually have some goodies for you guys. We have our walk-in freezer, so I have goodie bags. So you guys can take home some kale, some scallions, some chard, so you can have a little taste of Sky Farm LIC to take home with you. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Costa, come on in the middle. You're like the star of the show here.